So happy Thursday. Welcome and thank you for joining me as we continue to talk about mental health as our way of getting real about mental health with the free webinars that we've been putting on every Thursday for the month of May. Last week, we talked about worry and dealing with uncertainty. Today, we will be discussing a method of managing worry and mental health that is near and dear to my heart, something that I incorporate deeply into my life, and I help to teach my clients as an occupational therapist to do the same. And we'll talk about some strategies for self-care and resiliency during these pretty difficult times. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicolette Gowan. I'm an occupational therapist at Gowan Consulting. Gowan Consulting is an organization of occupational therapists across Canada that provides support to employees and employers by collaborating on solutions, sustainable solutions for staying at work or returning to work. As an occupational therapist, I work with employees with a variety of emotional, cognitive, physical limitations that might impact their ability to engage with and perform their work tasks. I frequently use principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, acceptance, and self-compassion when coaching individuals to best manage their mental, physical, and cognitive health. So a bit of an agenda for the webinar today. Today, I want to talk about this practice that, as I said, I find very near and dear to my heart, and I love to teach to clients. We'll talk a lot about mindfulness. We'll look at what mindfulness is and what its potential benefits might be. I'll touch a bit on the science supporting mindfulness, and I'll talk about the mindful attitude, so this quality of mindfulness. I'll also talk about some additional strategies that you might think about bringing into your life to improve your self-care and resiliency. Mindfulness. Mindfulness seems to be quite the buzzword or the trendy well-being practice right now. And we often hear of its ability to make people more calm, less stressed, and more focused on the day-to-day. But what is it? It seems that mindfulness can be defined differently by everyone. I prefer the definition by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is the creator of mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is an 8-week group program to help develop self-awareness, reduce the impact of stress and ruminating unhelpful thoughts, and respond to experiences that in ways that align with our values or our intentions in life. So he defines mindfulness as an awareness that emerges when we pay attention in a particular way. This particular way is on purpose, so with intention, to the present moment, to what is happening right now, and without judgment. I like to include other qualities of attention that are important when practicing mindfulness to be patience and kindness, curiosity and openness, and acceptance, a willingness to be with whatever experience is occurring in this moment. It is important to acknowledge that mindfulness has its origins in the Buddhist traditions. Until recently, mindfulness has been a relatively unfamiliar concept in much of our Western culture. In our society, researchers and clinicians who have used a mindfulness practice in their treatment programs often teach these skills independently of the religious and cultural traditions. What's so important about the present moment? Why do we want to be in the present moment? So often we live life on autopilot. So mindfulness can help us stop this autopilot. Living in the now, or this present moment, is essentially all that we have. So often our attention is not on what's happening right now in this moment. Constantly, our thoughts are consumed by future worries, plans, worst case scenarios, or past thoughts such as regretting or analyzing conversations, or just a general resistance to the present moment because we so badly want it to be another way. Reflecting on our current situation of COVID-19, it's obvious that this is not a situation that anyone has asked for or actually wants to keep happening. But the more time that we spend caught up in our worries and our worst case scenarios, the less time that we're actually spending paying attention to what's happening from moment to moment. The present moment is the only place where joy can be built and experienced. Essentially, when we live on autopilot, mistakes can happen, experiences can be missed, and we rob ourselves of the richness that occurs in even the simplest of moments. And I'll tell you a funny today story about autopilot. For me, autopilot seems to happen a bit more often when I'm tired or in the morning. So this morning, I was caught up thinking about something that I needed to do today. And instead of pouring my coffee grinds into my coffee grinder to make my coffee, I poured them directly into my coffee mug. And I just laughed at myself because the more that I practice mindfulness and start bringing mindfulness into my day, the more that I notice how easy it is to get caught up in this autopilot. And so it reminded me to be more mindful and bring my whole self into each experience as I've gone through the rest of my day today. So notice those moments when you get caught up in autopilot, and instead of getting mad at yourself or annoyed or frustrated, try and smile at it or laugh at it, and then bring the mindfulness into it. And if we're able to get out of this autopilot, this tendency to always be worrying about the future or analyzing the past, we can decrease negative thinking spirals and ruminating thoughts. We can learn to respond rather than react to situations based on our emotions. We can build more tolerance for challenging emotional states. It can help us to see that emotions, thoughts, and experiences are temporary and will eventually pass. Something especially important during this pandemic. It's normal to feel worried, anxious, or sad right now. But the more that we run from actually experiencing and acknowledging these emotions, perhaps by using substances or constantly on social media, or maybe emotionally eating, the more these emotions can build up within us and create further mental tension and potentially illness. Okay, so this all sounds great, but how does it actually work? The effectiveness and science behind mindfulness can be explained by neuroplasticity. The brain can change over time based on repeating certain things over and over. We can form new pathways and new wiring within the brain. By the things you practice, the habits you form, you can effectively rewire the brain. There are several studies that show after an 8-week mindfulness-based group, participants actually showed a change in the brain. They showed an increase in gray matter in an area of the brain called the hippocampus. This area is responsible for learning and memory, emotion regulation, compassion. Similar studies have shown mindfulness programs to be effective in downregulating or reducing the amygdala. And this is an area of the brain associated with fear that releases stress hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. So it can make the stress response less intense and able to regulate back to normal more quickly than previous to these mindfulness programs. There's several studies out there. I just put up a few on here as reference. Okay, so again, maybe we're building some momentum on this idea of mindfulness, but then how do we actually start to practice and bring mindfulness into our life? There are many different examples of mindfulness practices and ways of practicing mindfulness. I'll provide some ideas on how you might start. It's important that if you're building a mindfulness practice, that you start small and build up. Try easing into it with 3 minutes per day and build from there. Pick a time of day that works best for you. So if you're not a morning person, it might not work well for you to practice in the morning. Try to stack it with another habit, such as brushing your teeth or eating lunch. So we can practice mindfulness more formally, which is called meditation. Traditional meditation is done in just seated with eyes closed, but in more of a Western culture, to make it more accessible, really meditation can be practiced in many different positions. It could be sitting, standing, or lying down. It's about having an anchor for the attention. Oftentimes people use the breath as this anchor for attention. So we sit or we lay or we stand and we feel the breath come into the body and we feel it go out. And we stay in the moment, bringing back the attention to the breath, breath by breath. We can also use body sensations. So we can intentionally observe an area of the body for sensation, such as an itch, tingle, pressure, or temperature. And we can move the attention along the body as a body scan, being curious about the sensations we notice as they arise. And it's important to try to observe non-judgmentally the impulse to get up, to be doing something else, or the thoughts that come into the mind. Instead of creating a dialogue about the thoughts that we are having, we gently bring our attention back to the breathing or to our anchor. It's important to understand that we are not trying to stop our thoughts as they run through the mind. It's not realistic. We are simply observing them as if they are mental events, as if they were clouds passing by in the sky. We notice they're arising in the mind, and we bring the attention back to our anchor. Anchors can also be within the external environment, such as focusing on a particular sound or sight. I find it meditative to watch and to listen to the waves as they hit the shore on the beach. The key is the attitude we bring and the fact that we intentionally direct the attention back to our anchor. There's also more, I guess you'd say, informal practices of mindfulness, which can look like different mindful activities. So mindful walking, bringing all of our attention to the sensations of walking. Mindful eating, paying attention to texture, sound, sight of what you're eating to fully increase the richness of the experience. Really, you can bring mindfulness into any activity. And to bring mindfulness into any activity looks like using all 5 of the senses to fully come into the moment. I find this is especially helpful for activities that you don't enjoy, that you typically might have an unhelpful internal dialogue, such as, I can't wait to get through this, or I'm forced to do this, or I don't want to be doing this. So instead of getting caught up in that unhelpful dialogue, can you focus all of the attention on the senses and the experience itself? Examples that come to mind for me would be doing the dishes or making the bed. You can also try having a mindfulness cue. So cues within your environment that each time you walk through a door or each time you look across your shoulder to see the plant, that you remind yourself to bring mindfulness or bring your full attention into the present moment. Mindfulness is not about forcing ourselves to sit and just be mindful. It's not about getting mad at our mind for its natural tendencies to wander or to label things as good or bad. When we practice mindfulness, there are certain attitudes or qualities of paying attention that we must bring into any mindfulness exercise in order for it to be helpful for us. These are the foundational pillars of mindfulness. First, it's important to try and be non-judgmental. The human mind has amazing capacities to think ahead, to label experiences as good or bad, to compare ourselves with others, and to judge. Essentially, our mind has a mind of its own. When practicing mindfulness, we work on being this observer that watches the mind as it thinks. Instead of identifying with thoughts that naturally pop up as we practice, we see them as mental events, and we don't judge them for happening. And it's important not to judge the mind for what it does. And when we notice the mind wander off or start to label a certain thought as good or bad, we simply notice. We smile at the mind when it happens, and we bring the mind back to our anchor, to our present moment experience. Patience. Again, the mind will run around. That's what it does. We will notice that on certain days, maybe it's easier to be in the moment, to redirect our thoughts or our attention. And some days it's harder. Maybe our mind is more agitated on some days. This is also very normal, and we must be patient with ourselves if we find it to be difficult to focus the attention. Just by the act of practicing, we are strengthening this capacity to be with our present moment and to redirect our attention with patience. Curiosity. When we engage in mindfulness, we try to have a beginner's mind, a mind that is willing to see everything as if it were for the first time, as if it were a child's mind. This perspective allows us to let go of any expectations we might have for our mindfulness practice and more open to new possibilities. Trust. Developing trust in yourself is a critical part of the practice. The spirit of a mindful attitude emphasizes understanding what it means to be you, trusting your intuition and letting go of this desire to be like someone else. In mindfulness, we can allow all parts of ourselves to be trusted and develop a kinder relationship towards ourselves. Non-striving. In our society, we are very goal-directed and driven. However, this attitude can be an obstacle to our mindfulness practice. When we are striving for something, we are thinking about the future. We're thinking about our future selves, which is the opposite of practicing mindfulness. So practice letting go of this need or desire to be somewhere else, to be doing something else, to be completing your to-do list, and practice fully being in a moment. Acceptance. Acceptance involves seeing things how they actually are in the present moment and coming to terms with that. Often when we are experiencing mental distress, it is not due to the situations or the events themselves. However, the main source of distress comes with this negative mental dialogue that surrounds the experience. Why is this happening to me? I wish things were another way. When will this end? I hate the way that things are. Can all increase the amount of turbulence a certain event can cause. When we think of the COVID-19 pandemic, is it helpful to continually worry or run through scenarios or perpetuate negative, unhelpful thoughts? If instead we try to accept the conditions we're in, we may leave more space for experiencing other things that are happening in the right now that may bring us more joy or at least contentment. Acceptance is not just about accepting our events or experiences, but also accepting ourselves for who we are and for all of our qualities. When we push away or deny certain parts of ourselves, we create mental and physical tension that again can add to this distress and negatively impact overall health. In mindfulness, one cultivates acceptance by taking every moment as it comes and being present with it, and not imposing our beliefs about what we should be feeling. Allowing ourselves to experience negative emotions is the only way to move past them. When we push away the hard, we do not make it easier for ourselves. And finally, the last attitude is letting go. This idea of non-attachment is important because as you begin to pay attention to your thoughts in the moment, you may find that there are thoughts that your mind just does not want to let go of. In mindfulness, we intentionally set aside the tendency to hold on to some experiences, thoughts, or emotions and reject others. Instead, we let our experiences come as they are. This attitude is very relevant to sleep. Sometimes maybe you notice difficulty sleeping due to all of these thoughts running around in your head. Sleeping is basically letting go of your body and your mind for the night. So, not being able to let go can lead to this restlessness. Basically, the practice of mindfulness is learning to practice letting go when we are in a wakeful state. Again, with practice, we might start to see this spill over into other aspects of our lives, making it more easy to let go of old relationships, old experiences or conversations, letting go of activities we might have lost during COVID-19, such as the fact that we can't golf right now, which is something I might need to practice letting go a little bit more, or letting go of worries to allow us to sleep at night. So it's important to keep in mind these attitudes that you bring to a mindfulness practice, because just sitting and telling yourself, okay, be in the moment, be present, and forcing it is not going to create a mindfulness spirit, and you're not going to see that transfer over into a day-to-day life. So I've talked a lot about mindfulness, and I'll leave you with some resources at the end of guided meditations that you can practice and see what it's actually like. But I want to talk about other ways that we're making sure of taking care of ourselves more sustainably to create this kind of resiliency or this self-care plan. Resiliency is our way of managing stressful events and bouncing back from difficulties. The great thing is that we can actually strengthen this ability by focusing on different resiliency muscle groups, and I'll talk more about that. As we go through this next portion of the webinar, take note of at least one thing that you want to commit to improve your self-care and resiliency. Maybe that one thing is mindfulness. When you're thinking about this thing that you commit to, try and be specific. Connect it to another habit if possible. Start small and build up. Be realistic with yourself. Write it down to encourage commitment and follow through. Measure it and celebrate. Reward yourself for completing these acts of self-care. These activities can be a way to charge your batteries so that you can take care of yourself and your loved ones. Let's look a little bit further at these resiliency muscle groups and how we might strengthen them. So you'll see that there's 5 resiliency muscle groups on here. First, we have social resilience. This could look like being a good listener and a supportive ear for friends and family. Virtual hangouts with friends and family, such as virtual dinners, game nights, exercise challenges. Learning about communication and assertiveness skills. Laughing. It sounds corny, but laughing is a great way to release endorphin and lift spirits. And manage mental health. So can you watch a funny movie, or can you call a friend that you know will make you laugh, or look at funny memes on the internet? Resilient thinking. Use problem solving to solve worries or try and let go of them if there's something that you can't control. Maintain perspective on situations by reframing the way you think about events and experiences, something I work a lot on with my clients with cognitive behavioral therapy. Can you see challenges as learning experiences and opportunities for growth? Can you stop expecting yourself to be perfect and practice being compassionate towards yourself? Treat yourself, your thoughts, and your experiences like you would treat your best friend. Recognize your cognitive distortions or these tricks that the mind might be playing on you. Practicing mindfulness can help with all of these things. Emotional resilience. Being self-aware of your emotions and the physical reactions associated with your emotions so that you can regulate them rather than try to control them or to be controlled by them. Again, by allowing yourself to sit with and experience emotions, it allows them to eventually pass rather than building up. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be angry. The more we reject these experiences, the more they can impact us. Can you try setting your boundaries around conversations, activities, or working hours so that you can maybe limit the impact that others have on your emotions? Physical resilience. Taking care of yourself physically looks like proper nutrition, drinking enough water, exercise, getting enough sleep, and having regular check-ins with your doctor. Spiritual resilience. This idea of spirituality, we all have spirituality. It is at the core of every single one of us. It is what makes us feel connected with things that are more than ourselves. It's this sense that gives us purpose and meaning. Strengthening this muscle group can look different for everyone. For some, it's getting out in nature. For some, it's being creative with art or music. For some, it's religion and a higher presence. We can connect deeper to our spirit by practicing mindfulness, being compassionate towards all of our experiences, and learning to accept and let go of things that do not serve us or that we cannot control. We're getting close to the end, so I wanted to leave with this quote about self-care. Self-care means giving the world the best of us, not what's left of us. So charging our batteries, filling our cups is what makes us better parents, better employees, better friends, better spouses. It's important to take care of ourselves first. And please let Gowan help. Let Gowan Consulting help you manage your mental health and your employees' mental health. Bring training similar to these with customization for your teams and your employees. Help them to build their self-care and resiliency, potentially mindfulness. As a manager, participate in our virtual manager mental health training. So we've been running this publicly for individual managers, or it can also be organized for a group of up to 25 managers within an organization. And we've received feedback that this 4-hour virtual program has helped managers to gain knowledge of the mental health continuum, recognizing and managing their own mental health, and helping employees in distress to stay at work or to get the resources and help that they need. This is a program that has helped managers to save lives. So reach out to Gowan Consulting for more information or sign up for our next public training session on June 16th at gowantraining.com. We can also provide accommodation assessments for employees struggling with emotional or physical or cognitive limitations impacting their ability to perform their job roles. We provide comprehensive assessment, recommend strategies, and provide OT intervention to help employees implement these strategies and to stay at work. And reach out to us to arrange either on-site or virtual occupational therapy services for employees so that we can provide work-focused CBT and practical strategies for managing mental health. These services have proven to be effective at keeping individuals at work and avoiding costs of mental health-related claims. Finally, I would have really hoped to have led you through a mindfulness practice, but with only half an hour, I did not have the time today. So check out our Gowan Consulting YouTube. I have a few guided meditations up there. Specifically, I talked about a breathing mindfulness and I talked about body scan mindfulness. So there's both those videos up on our Gowan Consulting YouTube page. So please go check those out after today. And yeah, I know it's right on 1 o'clock right now. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to stick around for a couple of minutes. I saw that there was a question about the slides. So if you email the email on the slide right now, gowanhealth@gowanhealth.com, we can have these slides sent out to you. So thank you so much for joining me. And as you'll see, I get really excited about talking about mindfulness and self-care because I know how important it is for me in my life, for my clients in their life, and everyone in general. So I hope you took something out of this presentation, and I hope you'll join us next Thursday, where Nancy Gowan will be talking about psychologically health and safety workplaces.